All right, 12:33 it is. So probably best that we make a start. Welcome to our March webinar. I can't believe that we're looking at a slide which has 2029 as a date on it, but that is the period of the next license agreement, 2026 through to 2029. So the agenda for today, we're going to cover some of the ground that we've already covered in the last couple of webinars, looking at the structure of the new agreement. The pricing, probably why you're all here. We've got some updates for you on that. We've got a timeline through to August when the agreement renews, some things to consider, and then time for questions. And on that, questions will be entered through Slido. There's a QR code there, or you can go to Slido and put in the code hashtag Esri1003, which is today's date. So go to slido.com, put in that Esri1003, and you'll get through. We'll work through the questions at the end, have a scan through the questions that have already been asked. If there's a question that looks like your question, upvote it, and we'll go through them in order. Yeah, we were trying to make this more discursive and open, but we couldn't unmute everybody for the way that we'd set up the GoToWebinar. If we do another one of these and we want to have a more active conversation, then we'll make sure that's facilitated when we set it up. It was my bad for not requesting it at the beginning. So we're stuck with our mics on mute. So ask your questions through Slido and then we'll answer them in order of the number of votes that they've got. So covering the old ground. For many of you, you'll have been on a webinar and you'll have heard us talk about the new license agreement and the allocations. Some of you might not, so we'll go through them again. As of 2026, or the 1st of August 2026, I should say, the allocations for the site licenses will look as follows. The large will have 15,000 users and 1 million credits. The medium will have 5,000 users and 500,000 credits, and the small will get 250,000 users and 2,500 users and 250,000 credits. Oh, numbers all over the place. Those are the headline things. What does that mean? The professional plus user gets an ArcGIS Online account with all of the analytical tools, a pro license, and all of the extensions, plus City Engine. Story maps are always included into the ArcGIS Online, etc., and all of the mobile worker stuff like field maps and Survey 123. I've summarized some of the products there. Online apps, Hub Premium for your organization, ArcGIS Monitor, All Source, Drone to Map Standard. I'm going to come back to Drone to Map at the end. So if you've already got a question, I've got an update for you on that. So the allocations look like that for the medium, small and large. I don't know why I did it in that order. And we plan to use the JISC bands, and Anna is lurking on this call and she'll come in. She's an organizer, so she'll be able to unmute herself and correct me when I make mistakes. But we're planning to use the JISC bands, so you'll know where your JISC band is. And if you're in 1 and 2, you'll be in large, 3 through to 5B, go into medium, and then 6 to 10 small. I think were the allocations before. I realize I should have put them on the slide, but your JISC band will map you into one of our 3 site licenses. The departmental license lab pack looks roughly the same, 50 users. You get the desktop plus online and all of the apps, and you get 12,500 credits, and that's pretty much it. It's designed for universities that don't have wide use and they've got isolated use in one subject area and no more than 50 users. This is the option for you, and that's independent of your JISC band. If that's the one that you need, then that's the one that you can get. With each of the site licenses, but not the departmental license, you get an administrative use allocation. Admin use for people is generally estates and facilities, but it could also be a marketing team or an admissions team looking to see where their students come from or go to, and has some targeted geographical marketing associated with that. Think about schools and catchments. Maybe there are schools who have the attainment figures, but not many of the pupils end up being your students, but there's really good lines of communication, and you could get to your campus within an hour on public transport, which massively reduces the cost of the time at university. You might want to market to them. But if you don't know that those schools exist that have the attainment figures and are easy to get to your campus, then you're kind of marketing blind. And we can talk about that. If you've got questions, I'm happy to guide you through that. I think it's an underutilized element. But these are the allocations. Big changes here are, you'll see that the professional plus users have decreased, but the mobile users have increased. Now, the reason for that is this is to better right sizing your users against the functionality that they require. The Pro Plus users have a desktop allocation. There's very few, if any, estates and facilities department that will have 100 people using ArcGIS Pro and all of its extensions on a daily basis. More likely, they'll have 10 to 15 of them, but they'll have hundreds of people that might want to be out on site recording faults or taking photos of the things that they've just fixed and passing that into their central knowledge source. Those are the mobile users. They can use apps that are created by the Pro Plus users in a secure, authenticated way. The other addition is that we've added in unlimited viewer users. So for the senior management team and the stakeholders, you can share information securely. It's not in the public domain. It's behind that sort of login, so it is secure. Or to all of your students, if you wanted to have special information for the students, which isn't in the public domain, about disruption across the campus or emergency action plans, you can also do that. Those are what the viewers are for. And I've listed most of the products there, and I'll confess I need to get all of the products for the agreement into our old friend Appendix A at some point, but I'm still working on that. So those are the main things that you need to bear in mind for the license. Going forward, Anna's coming in.
Can I just add something based on what we talked about yesterday?
Yep.
And I think this is worth flagging up, that administrative use doesn't necessarily, so you can have admin users who are admin users within your institution, as in they work in an administrative role, but they could be working on an academic project. So I think it's just worth saying, isn't it, that they could go on to the academic account rather than the admin account.
Yeah, and if you have any questions, the best thing is to email highered@esriuk.com and we will chat through the scenario that you've got. So one example might be that you have somebody working on a collection, a historical collection, which is held by the university, and they want to expose that through the internet with geography enablement, so as it can go into local schools. That isn't an admin function. We would say that sits more on the academic tenant, and we prefer it to be there. It's the cheapest way for the university to do it than using their smaller allocation and more precious users in the admin account. But a good interjection by Anna as ever. So the academic site licenses, those are your allocations. Departmental license, the administrative use allocation for the site licenses. Oh, pause. And now probably the moment you've been waiting for, their prices. So Anna and I have been working quite hard over the last couple of months to try and get you the best deal, and a deal which is good for you and also fair for Esri UK and its other customers. We treat you quite specially in academia anyway, with a whacking discount of about 95% off commercial value. And the offer now is to go with an annual 4% increase over the next 3 years. Now that is a change from what we've done in the past, where we've been doing uplift in the first year and then flat for year 2 and year 3. And with JISC, we were working to get a deal which fits with the headwinds that you're experiencing. There's never a tailwind. This is my 4th time through this process, and there's always something be it a financial meltdown or a global pandemic. And now we've got a financial meltdown and probably a little bit more economic unrest with people firing missiles at each other. But this deal essentially represents the best that we can really get to. And if you took that 4% annual increase over 3 years and you tried to then replicate it in terms of uplift in year one and flat across, it works out as 8.23%, which is cracking, I think. It's below what we in Esri would be offering to any other customer across the board. So this is it. I've put some indicative figures here of what it might cost, and for people struggling to know the difference between an annual 4% increase and a up, and I've done it there. So based on £1,000, now you're spending 1,040 in year one, 1,082 in year two, and 1,125 in year three. But the headline figure is 4% a year for the 3 years, which is equivalent to an 8.23% over the 3-year term. What does that mean for the actual licenses? Well, here's how much you'll have to pay. If you know your JISC band and you know what site license you're on at the moment, you'll be able to screenshot that out of this and have that as your figures. I'm not going to read them all out. I've put a comma in to make it easier for the large. I'm interested to know, though, if you've got a procurement limit where you have to go to a tender, then what is it? And is this going to cause a problem? Because I have had somebody speak to me and go, I think ours might be 10K, and it trips us up when we move from a medium to a large, which is what they wanted to do. So I might have some hiccups and road bumps ahead based on the financial structure that you have in your university. Finding out if you have that limit, if you're on the large, and telling me early will help us work with you to find the best way forward. And that's with us and with JISC. There's always a way. We just need to know what the problems are. These prices are annual and exclude VAT, but they always do. And to give you some context, I've put that wee screen grab at the bottom. This is publicly available information as well. If you were to rock up as a consultant and try and buy an ArcGIS license on the Professional Plus user type, which is what you get, you would be getting an annual bill of £6,620 for one user. And you'll know that the smallest, even the departmental license gets 50 of those. But on the largest license, it's less than 2 users at full commercial cost. So I still think it represents an amazing deal. And Anna and I were discussing yesterday, Esri's got its prices public of its commercial rates up to a point, and also its academic discounts. And we're trying to be as honest and transparent about that. Like, we're committed to supporting this community. And that means that we will put our prices in the public domain to show you what you're paying or what you could pay, and what it looks like on the other side of the fence in the commercial sector. And we're happy to do that because we think we do offer you a good deal where we can make it as cheap as possible. Is that okay? I'm not looking at Slido because I'm looking at my face and my slides. But if you've got questions, keep asking them, and then I'll come to them at the end. Additional products. There are some missed out of those summary tables, and it's mainly because I haven't managed to nail down the full Appendix A. There's less in that Appendix A than there has been in the past. But for academic use, it's probably going to be what are the additional service credits and what are they going to cost? And Drone to Map Advanced, I would imagine, will be the top 2 things. Service credits to be confirmed. I'm hoping it's not going to be a massive jump from where it was, but those credits do cost Esri actual money, and they're heavily discounted, so I have to have that discussion and get that back. I'm hoping to get that in the next couple of weeks. Drone to Map Advanced is really interesting. There's a new version of Drone to Map coming out, but I don't quite know when, and nobody will tell me because they don't quite know. But the news is that Drone to Map Advanced is going away, and Drone to Map Basic is going away, and it's just going to be called Drone to Map. And it's going to have all of the functionality of those two products in one. So that means it will do 3D and structure from motion in its package. And the heads of education are actually at Esri Inc. working pretty hard to make sure that when that homologated product is released, it is included on the global education deal, which means we would get it. And we're advocating quite hard for that as well where we can. But I've just got my fingers crossed because I don't know when it's coming out. So I might not be able to promise it as we move towards renewal. But if it does happen, it will just land in our accounts because we're on the global education deal as well. Does that make sense? Hopefully it does, looking at a blank screen. So when it's released, brilliant. Does it do everything that Advanced did? Yes. Can we get it into the global education deal? If we can, it will then arrive in all of the ArcGIS Online organizations and just be licensed through ArcGIS Online. Admin use, additional products, a slightly larger list because there's slightly less that's available by default for you. Additional service credits, definitely. I'll find out the pricing for those. You might want additional Pro Plus users. So if you used to have 100 and you've dropped to 20, but you think you need 30, you'll be able to buy usually bundles of individual bundles of about 5, 10, or 20 to make up that difference. Field users, you might want some more of those. I have a couple of universities that have had up to 200 field users. So there will be a price for that as well. And again, it's usually bundled in 10s or 20s. Drone to Map Advanced, we've already talked about that. If we can get it into the admin use, we will. There might be a small charge for that. It might be gratis. I'm not too sure. Indoors, it's already available as an add-on. I just have to get them to confirm the prices. I have more flexibility in defining the site licenses than I do the individual add-on components. And I think for most of you, the important thing is to get the best possible deal on that main package, because that's the enablement one for all of the lecturers and the students and the researchers. But I might have missed something. And if I have, stick it in the comments and I'll stick it into my notes. And when I go into that meeting with Esri Inc., I'll have a definitive list of what we need. Anna and I have the list of what we've offered over the last 3 years, but that doesn't mean that reflects what we've actually provided into the community. Does that make sense? Hopefully it does. A timeline. I'm not particularly proud of this slide. It was the best that I could do last night. We're okay at the moment, I think, on a timeline, and I would probably agree that it's taken a while to get the pricing sorted, and it's mainly sort of just calendars aligning to get the right people. Anna and I are not the ones that are paid enough money to make these decisions. We have to make the cases to our bosses. Our bosses have to get together, and then they decide. So that's the process. But hopefully it reflects a good deal. The next month is going to be communicating what that deal is, trying to get the message out. You know, we've got 80 odd people on this call. For me, that's great. However, even if it's one person per uni, there's 50 that haven't turned up. So my job is going to be to get the message out to everybody, to finalize those additional products so as we can make a formal offer in May. And that will be the Esri UK sign-up sheet with the click-through license and the JISC ordering order form as well. So there's always going to be those two things. Like you have to agree to the licenses on our portal, and that then triggers the release of the software. And then you do your sort of like financially contract bit on the JISC side. And once you've got all of those things together, your order's in. Then we move through to a period where we want that to be delivered, the new allocations into your accounts in July. I take a big deep breath there. I wonder what I'm going to say next. It's always stressful for me in July because Esri Inc. have their global conference and they kind of shut down pretty much everything. And then it feels like a bit of a race to get over the line. But if this one should be easier because there's less less stuff in my Esri, and most of it's in ArcGIS Online. So as long as they've got the allocations, they should just be to flick a switch. But in August, there's quite a lot of work for me to do to make sure that you lot have got everything that you're expecting and nothing has been turned off. And some of my customers last year had their ArcGIS Online allocation moved, and it was not what we had hoped to happen. You just need to tell me and I can usually get it fixed. But yeah, we get 90 something percent of it right. I just need to catch the ones that don't quite match what we were expecting and get them fixed pretty quickly. But that's our timeline. So the offer will be coming out late April, early May. Anna and I have got a bit of work to do to make sure everything's in place, both for you to place your order and legally for us to be able to offer that order and to know what the offer is. And that's my responsibility. Implications and considerations. What do we need to be thinking about? Licensing, credits, storage. Credits and storage probably go hand in hand. So let's deal with licensing first. I had a little panic there. I was like, oh my God, I've forgotten to mention that ArcMap's going away, but I can cover it on this slide. The licensing will be named user only by and large. That's the primary route that your users will be licensed with ArcGIS. Most of you are in a happy place that you've already done that. But with these new allocations, those little codes that are lurking in my Esri for ArcMap, they're definitely gone. And the ones for Pro, they're almost certainly gone. So you can make your life easy if you go down an SSO route. So it should be frictionless for the students and the staff to get access to the software that they need when they need it. Only if they know about it, I suppose. But once they know about it, click a button, takes them to ArcGIS Online, gives them the URL that they need for the front door to connect with a single sign-on, and then they've got their account and they can start either downloading Pro to put on their personal laptop or using ArcGIS Online or licensing Pro on a machine as well. So that should all work. However, there's always the edge cases. And in this case, it's probably called an air gap solution, a trusted research environment, whatever your name is, where you have a cluster of computers which are disconnected from the internet. This model will not work. So we need to have a solution. I'm not entirely satisfied with the workarounds that are being given, if I'm honest, and I'm still being a pain in the bottom to certain people to get us a better solution. It exists already. It's the single use codes that we already have in our account, but they want to get rid of that mechanism, but they haven't got, in my mind, a viable working alternative yet. So I suspect where we need them, we will get a small bundle of ESU codes, which we can deploy into those trusted research environments. How can you help me? If you have an air gap solution, trusted research environment, let me know. If you're going away on a research vessel for 2 months or 3 months, there's a workaround for that where you can take your licenses offline. Longer than that, it becomes slightly more problematic. But flood me with emails, but give me actual evidence of what you're doing, and then I will use that to lobby for you to get the licenses that we need. But we're not talking 500, we're talking a handful of licenses that you give out where you really need to. The examples that I've used in the past are, I've been told, why don't they authenticate the machine without the data disk in it? So you have 2 disks, operating system, applications, and a data disk. Activate the license, then disconnect it from the internet and put the data disk in. So that doesn't work for a couple of the air gaps because if the machines ever touch the internet, then it has to be stripped down. So I just need a better workaround, but I need the evidence from you lot to provide back to Esri Inc. to fight your case. Credits. I think I'll have a little drink of Coca-Cola. There we go. Credits. So the allocation of credits is going down. The reason for this really is that credits cost money and that we have to pay for the cloud compute and the cloud storage. So Esri can't be as generous as they have been. The use of ArcGIS is increasing. which has a credit burden to it. So we need to be mindful of what we're doing with those credits. There's a couple of things that we can think about. One is, can you calculate your usage? You certainly can. The little screen grab here is just the admin panel in ArcGIS Online, and that's my account. So you can see I'm sitting at about 235 credits a day just on storage. There's only 4 of us in our team. That's a ridiculous amount. We're not very good at tidying. So we need to be better at tidying our account. Also, you might have some power users in your university that are doing more than everybody else, and they're on a certain research project. Our advice now is to consider having one ArcGIS Online node for academic use, teaching, and one for research. And where you've got heavy research users, you can speak to them because they may well have money in their budget for cloud storage and cloud compute. And if they're going to be doing it with geographical data, some of that money should maybe pay for the credits in ArcGIS Online. And we've got a few universities that are now that not considering doing that. They are doing that. They've separated their research nodes, and their research teams are told that they need to provide some money into the pot to pay for ArcGIS Online, but they're getting value out of it because they're using it to disseminate both the data through an open data portal and some lightweight discovery apps, which really do demonstrate impact into certain sectors. But they've now got more of a business model of, we're storing our data here, and we can account for how much we're going to use, and we're going to budget for that, we're going to pay for that and get the credits in here. So that kind of works. But let me know what you think, and if you've got some ideas or concerns, just tell me about them. One of the other things, though, is the storage costs have increased hugely. I reckon it's 80% of the credit use in the university in ArcGIS Online is on storage, and probably 80% of that storage is legacy storage. So we need to do some effective spring cleaning, and I've talked about this at length. I think if you separate out your students and your researchers, research data may have a longer shelf life than student work for coursework. Separating out your ArcGIS Online use into those 2 separate nodes allows you to have different policies and different scripts that can run against them. Does that make sense? So the research data persists for longer. The student data will get deleted as and when the student leaves, and you no longer need to retain their data. I've been looking at some tools. For those of you that join these calls regularly, you'll know I've been talking about this for quite some time, and I have been working to try and get a solution. And the key is automation. So that's a summary of what I've just said as well. And the automation might include some of these tools. So these are the tools from a company called GeoJob. It's not it's not part of Esri. It's a platinum partner, which I think is the categorization they came up with when they'd run out of gold. But they're a platinum partner, and they create tools which allow you to monitor, backup, and clean ArcGIS Online organizations when they've got really big, or when they're relied on to provide accurate information to users. 3 main tools are called admin tools for ArcGIS. You might have already used those. They've got a free version in the marketplace, and it's really good at finding big data sets or users that have never bothered to log in, or adding people in bulk to groups, things like that. It does things quite nicely. It's really simple to use, but it's quite limited in its functionality. Clean My Org on the far right has much more functionality. It allows you to do a deep dive into your account and find very, very specific things. Once you've found a very specific thing, then you will have an action against that specific thing. Find me data sets over 20 gigabytes that are shared privately, and email the users to say, do you need this? I'm considering deleting it if you don't get back to me in 30 days. That kind of thing you can be automated, and you run it once a month. Brilliant. Backup My Org in the middle is not to be underestimated as well. we've had a long discussion in the past about whether ArcGIS Online is backed up. It is, but it's backed up in a disaster recovery mode from our cloud providers. So if there's an outage on a machine hall, or it catches fire or floods, or is corrupted, then there's another copy somewhere else in one of their other machine halls, and they can flip it over. We would lose a day's worth of work. It isn't able to restore data when you've done a whoopsie and accidentally deleted it or overwritten the source. It doesn't do that. You can't restore individual things at all. But backup.org from GeoJob allows you to create a copy of your ArcGIS Online organization, either in another cloud that you own or on your own infrastructure. We do have customers that are using it because they've got mission critical data in ArcGIS Online, but they want to have a backup because they can't rely on, the other backup from Esri, because it isn't really a backup in that sense. So backup.org allows you to do that, and you just schedule what you want to back up and how often you want to back it up and where it's going, and set it off, and it'll run. Here's a little example of what Clean.org can do. This is within the items tab. So you can find unused items that have never been accessed for a period of time. So here I've got it set to 365 days. You can find duplicated items with the same name. You can find stuff that's not shared publicly. You can also check for broken links. So where you've got lots of web map applications that have been made, you can search and find the ones that have got stuff that's broken in them, rather than having to go to the individual elements. It's really useful in like a council would use that, where they've got web maps which are in the public domain. They would run that scan, because stuff does break and people do delete stuff from their account and have forgotten that they've published it into a web map application. So it's really neat. My experiments, I've done it. I've had a trial for a few months, and I've experimented. And I'll be completely honest here. I was hoping this was a massive silver bullet for us. It's definitely a bullet. It'll definitely do what we need it to do, but it's not quite as shiny as I'd hoped. There's a little bit of work to get it set up. I ended up running it on my personal machine because I couldn't get enough security clearance on my work desktop. You lot might be in a better position if you're in IT. Most of the people that use it in Esri UK for customers run it on VMs, and they have complete control of the VM with admin rights, separated from their desktop machine, to then schedule it. The other problem that I found was the scans. Some of the scans took a long time. I just couldn't keep my laptop awake long enough to run it. I did manage in the end, but my little laptop was getting very, very warm. So a VM is probably a better environment. And there's an admin burden, technical burden to setting all of that stuff up. It's not plug and play, but it does do what we need to do. And I don't think we've got a better option, apart from manually doing it, which I don't think you're going to be able to do either. So that's a fairly honest appraisal. I'm hoping to run maybe a session on the GeoJob stuff, because the other thing is that won't be free. GeoJob will have to charge us for you to use their services, and it wouldn't be included in the license fee. But we can have a discussion about that next. And that really brings me to the discussion part. So it's about 35 minutes of me prattling on. I'm now going to try and get into Slido, or I'll have to get somebody else to share their screen, because I didn't manage to get into Slido just before the call.
Addy, do you just want me to read the questions out to you?
You can do, yeah.
And I think, Jenny, if there's any more that I can't see. So we've got 6 questions in, and I'll read them from the priority down.
Excellent.
No, I'm just laughing because it's the one at the top is now the one about the chest fee. So I think I can answer that one. Okay, so the chest fee has actually been the same since 2017. So we are going to put it up slightly this time. So for the site licenses, it will go up from 400 to 440, and for the department license, it will go up from 200 to 220. So that's me answering that one.
And that's in year one, and then
well,
going to be
it's going to
fixed.
stay the same when I'm not,
Yeah.
it will be that per year. And then I suspect it will be like that for some years as well, seeing as it's been static since at least 2017 for the previous fee. So next question. Does Professional Plus Large include multiple ArcGIS Online sites for an institution? So Addy, I think this is you, but I did look up to see what people had at the moment. And I think
so you
at
get
the moment
multiple
it's 10,
AGOLs.
5 and 5, isn't it, for large, medium and small?
Yeah, you will get multiple AGOLs, but I'll get that confirmed as to how many you get on each one of the options.
Okay.
But I think Esri's trying to get, they came up with a number and it used to be 12 and nobody knew why they had 12 as their number of AGOLs. Some universities have 4 or 5, but honestly, I think we need to get back to a position where we have 3, because the more you have, the harder it is to manage and remember what you've got and where it is. Teaching node, research node, administrative use node seems to be the minimum that I can think is a viable working solution for a university. You could go with 2, but with 2, it makes it really difficult to clean out that node when you've got research data and student data in it.
Okay, so the next question, will all the credits be allocated at the start of the year, or will they be drip fed according to the number of accounts in ArcGIS Online?
So the number of credits is defined by the number of users that you have in an account. So it's a weird one, this. You get up to 15,000 users, but if you've got 2,000 users in your account and you've run out of credits, Esri will expect you to buy more credits because you don't need more users. So does that make sense? So we've had a university recently had 5,000 users in their account and I'd run out of credits, but they'd only used 1,000 of those users. And they said, well, we've got unlimited users. We want more users and it'll give us more credits. It's like, but what you need is more credits, not more users. So it's like skinning the cat. So that Professional Plus is up to 15,000 users.
But you can set the number of credits per user when you create how you allocate your user accounts.
Yeah, I know. And this is like this is a weird thing where I don't have as good an answer as I would like. But you have up to 1 million credits, but the credits are allocated per user. So does that make sense? So you have to then work out how many credits you get per user if you've got 15,000 and 1 million.
And then you can have different levels of user type who you allocate different numbers of credits to control it.
Yeah, and it's something that I will take back and say, okay, so we've got 15,000 users nominally as a maximum, but we know that University X is only going to have 5,000. So we want all 1 million credits in the account with 5,000 users, please. And if they go, that's not possible, it's like, okay, well, we need to word the offer better because these are your words, not your words, they're Esri Inc.'s words. This is actually a screen cap of theirs. Does that make sense? So I need to get them to clarify what they're going to do with their users versus credits, because in the past with unlimited, it was they had 100 credits per user. And if you ran out of credits, you used to be able to just ask for more users, but they've stopped that. If you've run out of credits and you've got headspace on your user account in your account, they ask you to buy more credits.
That to me sounds quite confusing, Addy. I think
it is quite confusing. I got confused saying it myself. Yeah.
And
so there's one, each user in your account will get allocated 100 credits, but they're not actually allocated against the user, are they? They're allocated against the account. So a user could spend all of the credits in your account. These are all deficiencies that I know about. Yeah.
With the user.
Even if you cap them.
Which is why it's crucial, I guess, to cap the account types.
To account the, sorry.
When you know, you have different types of account that you allocate out. So you can have like one for students or one for staff, and you can allocate how many credits they can consume.
Yeah.
which so that makes it crucial to do that, because otherwise one person could potentially consume unwittingly
Yeah,
a very
so if
large
I had,
amount of your total allocation.
so if I'm a medium university and I want to split, so we'll do a worked example in my head. If we've got a medium-sized university which has got 5,000 users, they're going to have a research node and an academic node. It's like, okay, what are we going to do? Let's make it 4,000 students and 1,000 researchers. So we're going to end up with 400,000 credits in our student account, 400,000 in the student account, and 100,000 in our research account. And we just ask for all of it up front with the maximum values. So defining what we want ahead of the allocation is going to be easier. These are clarification points for me to take back to Esri Inc. They've moved the bar for credits, and most of us will be fine with the credit allocation that we've been given, but some are quite close to being running out. These are also annual, by the way. I didn't say that, but these are annual credits, so you will get 1 million a year. I did get that clarified. But some are quite close to running out, and some will run out. But the question is, should you run out if you've got rid of all of the stuff that you don't need in your account? And I think the answer to that is probably not, but there will still be some that get close, depending on the analytics. So we need to be mindful of all of those things. And I don't have all of the answers.
So, okay, the next question. We are currently using an on-site server for concurrent licensing. Will this model still be available under the new license agreement?
No. This is a really short answer. So those are gone. They should have already gone by now. We only had them promised and guaranteed until the 1st of August 2024, but Esri didn't delete them, which gave us a little bit more of a buffer. But the messaging over the last 4 years is you need to move away from a concurrent use server, the Flex servers, towards ArcGIS Online. If you need help with that, just email me and we'll set up a call and we'll work out the best route to get you to a viable licensing platform for the 1st of August.
Okay. Sorry, I've just noticed someone's come back on the usage thing. I'll just mention that, seeing as quite close to talking about it. They've said, we can't cap storage usage per user, so yes, a small number of users can eat all the ArcGIS storage credits.
Absolutely. This has been pointed out to Esri Inc. quite a few times. We have examples where that's happened in a university. It's the system we have to live with and deal with. So the answer to that is you shouldn't run out of storage credits if you're monitoring your account. So you can set up, even within the ArcGIS system without any of the additional tools, you can set up regular scans to look for large items, which then gets a spreadsheet which is emailed to you. And we can go through that on another call. But you should be doing regular monitoring. And I suppose this is where we have to get to, where we actually do regularly look at what's in our account and what our credit use is. Even that little graph that you get here is quite useful. So I see it every time I log into ArcGIS Online. I see my credit use, so I can see if Kieran has been doing any analytics, because let's be honest, I'm not doing any. And I'll see the little blue line go above the green. But I would also notice if that jumped from 250 credits a day to 5,000 credits a day, I'm like, oh, what's going on there? So we need to be doing regular monitoring. And I can help you set up what you can do within ArcGIS Online, but the GeoJob tools, they go a level beyond.
Okay, so a new question. What is the percentage likelihood of losing Drone to Map completely instead of just having a full version, and do we know when this might happen?
That's a good question. I think it's low. So Esri's business model has subtly changed, and a lot of the difficult questions that I have to answer are around credits because of the cloud. Drone to Map does not use the cloud at all. It is a desktop application. So in my head, It doesn't matter if you give 1 copy or 1 million copies to universities, there's no difference in cost. So we're hoping that the new version is still desktop and is still easier to package than a cloud service, which is why we don't get SiteScan, because SiteScan uses the cloud, so Esri has to pay for it, and it can't disentangle its commercial use and its academic use cleanly to try and get discounts. Apologies, from its cloud providers. So I've got my fingers crossed. I don't think we'll lose Drone to Map. I think we'll get more with Drone to Map. It's just when. So if that product doesn't come out until September, we'll start with Drone to Map Basic in our accounts, and hopefully that will just change to be Drone to Map. But if it comes out in May, we'll start with Drone to Map. I just have no idea when it's coming. If I was a betting man, which I'm not, I'd say it will come out at the UC, the user conference in July, so it'll come out in the release just before that.
Okay, all right. Will we have the option to pay upfront for all 3 years?
Yeah, I mean, we'll take your money whenever is the short answer. But if
Doesn't
that's
say
easier for you to do in a budget, it is possible. And what we would probably do is you're paying JISC anyway. So you could pay JISC. JISC can hold your cash and pay us
we
whenever.
would.
But
Yeah, we can talk about this offline,
yeah,
Addy. But yes, we have contracts that we can have upfront payment options, and we haven't historically had one on Esri. But I don't see a reason why we couldn't add that in. But yeah, I think we need to discuss how the money would flow through time-wise. So yeah, we can let you know about that. Oh, sorry, I was making a note. Okay, if staff want to, I can't multitask. If staff want to change from coded accounts to single sign-on accounts, I guess like a named user, you know, the automated ones, can they port existing accounts over? Yeah, so for institutions who are now going to connect single sign-on, people have been using,
so
one allocated manually.
So if you do have that, the user will end up with 2 accounts. If it's within the same ArcGIS Online tenant, it's really easy to change the ownership of all of their data to their new single sign-on user. Within one AGOL node, it's super simple. So yes.
Okay, and then kind of related, can single sign-on assign different user types dependent on staff student accounts?
I'm not 100% sure. There's probably something with, I'm not 100% sure. I don't understand single sign-on well enough to answer that, but we'll make a note and I will ask Damien, who some of you have met on a previous webinar, what he thinks, but I don't know enough to answer.
So it's whether it can pass the attribute information on the user accounts.
Yeah, it has to. It would have to have the attribute in Active Directory or Entra, and then it would have to pass it into AGOL and then change its user type. It's a good question, just not my comfort zone at all. So I'll pass that to Damien and he'll try and investigate. And it's probably going to be dependent on your single sign-on. So whoever's asked the question, if you can put down what your single sign-on is, that would give them a little bit more information.
I think that's the last question, unless anyone else has got anything they want to add in based on any of the replies.
I feel we're moving forward. We've got the price, which is the big question for your budgeting. I just need to firm up all of those additional products and their costs in the next couple of weeks. And then the GeoJob stuff, I think is really interesting. I'd love it to be available as a no-cost option, but they're a business and they need to make their money and cover their costs for running their service. So we'll probably do a webinar. For the follow-up